Hello, friends. Today I'm back with a special program to introduce you to 10 exciting movies. These films are not only thrilling in various genres, but also feature captivating stories full of unexpected twists. In this video, I'll be examining each film and the reasons why you should watch them. If, like me, you're a cinema lover always searching for new and different films, don't miss this list. Stay tuned with me. We'll start from number 10 and move up to number 1. As we get closer to the top of the list, my anticipation and excitement for these films only grow. Number 10. Mickey 17. Directed by Bong Joon-ho, the acclaimed director of Parasite, Mickey 17 is an adaptation of the novel Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. This film, blending science fiction and drama, tells a story set in the future, filled with space travel and exploration. The story follows Mickey, a test subject sent on dangerous and challenging missions in space. He is part of the first group of humans selected to establish a colony on other planets. The interesting twist is that Mickey is considered replaceable. Every time he dies during a dangerous mission, advanced technology allows him to be reconstructed, preserving his memories. This process leads him to continuously return to life, facing new challenges each time. However, during one of these reconstructions, an unexpected event occurs that disrupts the balance, leading to the discovery of secrets that pose a serious threat to Mickey and the others involved in this mission. The film combines futuristic world-building, ethical and human questions, and psychological challenges, exploring new technologies and their impact on both individual and societal lives. Prominent actors like Robert Pattinson, Steven Yeun, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette star in the film, and powerful performances are expected. Mickey 17 is one of the most anticipated projects in cinema, drawing attention from both audiences and critics for its compelling story and stunning visuals. Number 9. Dune, Part 2. The sequel to the first Dune, 2021, Dune, Part 2 continues the epic and intricate story based on Frank Herbert's famous novel. While the first part mainly focused on introducing the characters and the complex world of Arrakis, the second part aims to take the story into more thrilling stages, full of battles and new explorations. Story and characters. In the first part, we witnessed Paul Atreides rising to power and facing political and family challenges. He had to deal with the invasions and deceptions of the Empire's rulers, while it was indirectly predicted that he would play an important role in the fate of the planet Arrakis. This time, the second part intends to unveil new secrets. Paul and Chani, played by Zendaya, have now become closer, and their love and war story will take center stage. Austin Butler, the famous actor known for his role in Elvis, joins this part and plays a new character. His unique makeup in this film will create a visually appealing and distinct character for him. The world of the film and its action. The cinematography and set design in Dune Part 2 are impressively grand and monumental. Arrakis, a planet with valuable natural resources such as spice, which powers interplanetary spaceships, has become a battleground for bloody wars. In this part, the battles and action scenes will be larger than ever. On the other hand, the film's science fiction elements are still depicted with precision and realism, and the unique environments and strange creatures are beautifully and visually captivating on the big screen. Directed by Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve, the Canadian director known for his masterpieces such as Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, brings his meticulous attention to detail in this installment as well. He has successfully balanced personal drama with the largest sci-fi battles, creating a unique cinematic experience. This film is likely to be one of the best science fiction and action films of the year, as, alongside its stunning visuals, the depth of the story and character development is also clearly evident. Music and visual effects. One of the standout features of the first film was Hans Zimmer's mesmerizing music, which continues in Dune Part 2. The combination of sci-fi themed music with the film's unparalleled environments adds to its appeal. Additionally, the special effects, especially in the sections involving the planet Arrakis, epic battles, and strange creatures, will leave a lasting impact on the audience. Number 8. Furiosa. A sequel to Mad Max, Fury Road, Furiosa is set to release on May 24, 2024. The story takes place when Commander Furiosa, who, in the previous Fury Road, had helped the ruling wives escape the palace, was younger. Now, 45 years after the destruction of Earth, she is trying to return to her family and escape from the forces that separated her from them. This sequel specifically explores Furiosa's younger years and reveals more details about her past. In this installment, the role of Furiosa, which was played by Charlize Theron in the previous film, is now portrayed by Anya Taylor-Joy. This change in the lead actress, along with the added depth to the storyline, has raised high expectations for the film. Overall, Mad Max Fury Road, which was previously recognized as the best film of the last 25 years by Rotten Tomatoes critics, is one of the most significant and successful action films in cinema history. Now, with a sequel set in George Miller's relentlessly exciting and vivid world, this film will offer new thrills, action, and visually stunning imagery to its audience. Number 7, A Quiet Place. Initially thought to be just an entertaining and commercially successful film, A Quiet Place proved to be far more than expected, becoming a high-quality and thrilling film that I absolutely love. The first installment of this film was made in 2018 with a budget of $17 to $21 million, and it grossed over $341 million worldwide. This success made it one of the highest-grossing horror films. Its sequel, A Quiet Place Part 2, was released in 2021. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, the film managed to gross over $108 million in domestic U.S. box office sales, surpassing its $61 million budget. The story of this series revolves around creatures that have invaded Earth and have extremely sensitive hearing. The slightest sound can lead them to you, spelling your end. What makes this series even more special is how it portrays the life of a family. This family, because they have a deaf child who is fluent in sign language, has managed to survive in a world where silence is paramount. Now comes the third part, or rather the spin-off of the series, titled A Quiet Place, Day 1. This film introduces new actors and focuses on the very first day of the catastrophe. Unlike the previous two parts, John Krasinski does not direct this version, but only serves as a producer. The film follows the stories of families and other individuals trying to survive on that first day. One of the criticisms that always existed about this series was the lack of detailed information about the origins of the creatures or the first day of the invasion. It seems that this installment is set to answer those questions. Number 6, Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse. The first installment of this animation, released in 2018, earned the title Best Superhero Animation of All Time from critics and secured a special place in the world of cinema. The success of the first film raised expectations for its sequel, which not only garnered similar praise but also surpassed its predecessor in box office sales. Now, with the arrival of the third part, the story of this trilogy is fully unfolding. Plot summary. The story begins with a teenage boy named Miles Morales, who is bitten by a radioactive spider and gains extraordinary powers. These changes make him the new Spider-Man in his world, and he must take action to save his universe from destruction. Key features: animation. The thrilling battles and vibrant colors used in this animation are unparalleled, offering an incredibly unique visual experience for the audience. Music. The soundtrack is engaging and perfectly aligned with the story, conveying various emotions in a remarkable way. Story. With its intricate and captivating narrative, this animation manages to immerse the audience, making each segment of the story more interesting and advanced than the previous one. Humor and characters. The characters and their witty dialogues, which were improved in the second installment, make watching the film even more enjoyable. The third installment of this animation, despite all the positive traits of the previous versions, faces challenges in surpassing the second one. Plot summary of the third part. In this installment, we continue following the story of Miles Morales, who is now more involved than ever in the complex issues related to the multiverse and parallel Spider-Man worlds. After facing various challenges in the Spider-Man universe in the second film, Miles now faces even greater threats that put the fate of all the different worlds in jeopardy. To save all the universes, Miles must collaborate with Spider-Man from various points in the parallel worlds. One of the key highlights of the story in this installment is that Miles will meet Spider-Man from other worlds and work with his new allies to combat a shared threat. This threat could destroy the entire Spider-Verse and plunge their worlds into chaos. Features and differences. 1. Expansion of the Spider-Man universe. In this part, the Spider-Man universe will expand significantly. In addition to well-known Spider-Man, new characters will be introduced, some of whom will have unique features and different designs. 2. More exciting and complex actions. If the previous installments were famous for their thrilling battles and challenges, the third installment undoubtedly aims to elevate this level of excitement to new heights. The Spider-Man's battles will not only be visually stunning, but also more strategic and intricate. 3. Miles Morales' character arc. This installment will present an emotional and spiritual journey for Miles, the protagonist. In this part, he will face not only physical challenges, but also internal and personal struggles. Becoming a true leader and accepting immense responsibilities are among the issues Miles will confront in this chapter. 4. Music and animation. As seen in the previous installments with their dazzling colors and unique animation, the third part continues this tradition. The animation reaches a new level of complexity and beauty, making the viewing experience unforgettable. Additionally, the soundtrack, perfectly synchronized with each scene and emotional nuance, plays a significant role in this version. 5. Balancing new and old characters. In addition to the return of familiar characters like Spider-Man 2099 and Spider-Gwen, it seems that new characters will significantly impact the story. These characters will bring new twists and help expand the Spider-Man universe on a much larger scale. Number 5. Gladiator 2. It's impossible to think of the film Gladiator without having at least one unforgettable scene come to mind. With its captivating story and the intense battle between good and evil, this film has left a lasting memory on us. Who can forget Russell Crowe's portrayal of Commander Maximus and Ridley Scott's brilliant direction? Now, after more than 2 decades, Ridley Scott is returning to the director's chair to make a sequel to this masterpiece. The story of this sequel revolves around Lucius, the nephew of Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix in the first film. Lucius is now grown up, and his life is deeply influenced by the events of the first film. The character is portrayed by Paul Mescal, whose casting has even made Russell Crowe a little envious. Gladiator 2 also features big stars like Denzel Washington and Pedro Pascal in its cast. When the film's production was announced, there was much skepticism about continuing the story without Maximus, and Russell Crowe himself said in an interview, "When I was told they wanted to bring Maximus back, I said it was impossible. People wouldn't accept that. But now, everything is set." While Ridley Scott may not be in his prime directing days, his name and the memories we have of Gladiator certainly heighten our excitement for this film. I'm sure Gladiator 2 will once again transport us to the magnificent and epic world of ancient Rome. Number 4. Zone of Interest. This film is one of the most intriguing cinematic works of recent years, and I felt its excitement the moment I first heard about it. Zone of Interest premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, where it won the prestigious Grand Prix. It also won the FIPRESCI Critics Award and received widespread acclaim from critics and audiences alike. The film tells an odd and profound story of contrasts. The commander of the Auschwitz concentration camp, located next to one of the forced labor camps, decides to build a beautiful garden and experience a calm and enjoyable life with his wife. This shocking paradox of violence and beauty forms the heart of the story and forces the viewer to reflect. In addition to its festival success, the film has been recognized at the Golden Globe Awards, where it was nominated for Best Motion Picture, Drama, Best Foreign Language Film, and Best Original Score. Sandra Hüller plays the lead role in the film. Her performance, which had already impressed me in Anatomy of a Fall, is so widely praised that it has become one of the main factors contributing to the film's appeal.
She had a fascinating life as a teenager during the war.
Number 3. Joker, Folie à Deux. A sequel to the critically acclaimed Joker, Folie à Deux, sees Joaquin Phoenix return as Arthur Fleck, the man who transforms into the Joker due to society's humiliation and injustice. However, this time, there is a significant change. Lady Gaga joins the cast as Harley Quinn. This addition not only turns the film into a musical, but also drastically alters its genre. In the film, Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn falls in love with the Joker while in a psychiatric hospital, and after his escape, she becomes his assistant. This story is drawn from DC Comics, where Harley Quinn, initially a psychologist, gradually becomes a crazed, dependent figure on the Joker. With its combination of madness and music, Joker Folie à Deux promises to be a very different experience from the previous Joker films. The dark and complex world of Gotham, now infused with these two elements, has sparked immense curiosity, and undoubtedly the anticipation for the sequel has grown. Number 2. Poor Things. Poor Things, directed by the renowned Greek filmmaker Yorgos Lanthimos, best known for his unique works like The Favorite, is one of the most anticipated films of the year. Currently showing in theaters, the online version is expected to be available more widely in 2024. The story of Poor Things follows a peculiar scientist who, after a woman's suicide, transplants her brain into the body of a newborn, creating an adult with the mind of a child. The lead character, played by Emma Stone, experiences the adult world and its complexities while her mind remains that of a child. The plot also delves into moral dilemmas and thrilling drama, especially with the involvement of a corrupt lawyer played by Mark Ruffalo, who deceives the protagonist and runs away with her. Poor Things boasts an impressive cast, with Emma Stone playing one of her most complex roles to date. Alongside her, the film features Michael Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, and Robert Pattinson, all contributing to the film's depth. The film has received positive reviews from critics and audiences alike, scoring well on major movie review platforms. IMDb 8.5, Rotten Tomatoes 93%, Metacritic 86. These high ratings reflect the film's quality in terms of performance, story, and direction. Poor Things won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival, one of the most prestigious cinematic awards, and has also been nominated for a Golden Globe, indicating widespread acclaim. Why should you watch this film? If you're a fan of art house cinema and complex, unconventional stories, Poor Things is a must-watch. With its innovative plot, stellar performances, and Lanthimos' unparalleled direction, this film offers a unique cinematic experience that transports you to a new world of sci-fi and philosophical storytelling. Number 1. The Film Critic. The Film Critic is the 10th and final film directed by Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino has previously stated that he would only make 10 films, and this marks his last project as a director, unless we consider the 2 Kill Bill films as a single entity. Film plot. The film follows a film critic from 1970s America, a highly controversial character known for his crude, racist remarks and scathing reviews. Tarantino focuses on this critic, illustrating how many of his statements now seem laughable. The director portrays this character with humor and complexity, revealing the absurdities and contradictions in his behavior and thoughts. Tarantino's trademark of historical revisionism. One notable aspect of Tarantino's films is his tendency to alter history. In many of his works, such as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino intentionally changes history to suit his narrative, creating unexpected endings for characters. It seems that in The Film Critic he will continue this trend, reinterpreting key moments in American cinema history and presenting them in his own unique way. Actors and characters. The film stars Paul Waterhouse in the lead role, playing the controversial critic. His performance brings to life the character's sharp tongue and racist tendencies, creating a dynamic and captivating presence on screen. Expect stellar performances and memorable dialogue, which are hallmarks of Tarantino's films. Tarantino's signature style, violence, and unique humor are consistent features in Tarantino's films, and the film critic will likely follow suit. These elements will set the film apart from other works in the industry, combining unexpected twists with sharp humor. Tarantino also critiques and analyzes the 1970s American cinema, offering a fresh take on some of the era's most iconic films. Why you should watch this film. If you're a fan of Tarantino's distinctive style and enjoy his genre-blending approach, the film critic should be at the top of your watch list. The combination of humor, violence, and historical revisionism, along with engaging characters and unexpected storylines, makes this film one of the most anticipated releases of 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. If you found this video helpful, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our future videos. We look forward to your suggestions and feedback as it helps us create better content for you. Until the next video, take care of yourselves.